Hi, I'm Janie from Whitehall Elementary School in Norristown. I recently had the chance to interview Ali Velshi. You may have seen him on TV. He's a journalist for MSNBC. I asked him about what it's like to be a journalist during COVID-19.
The challenges fall into two categories. One is, I'm coming to you from my home. I do all of my broadcasts from home. This isn't the background that I use because I've got a TV set that looks like our studio background. But, normally we would be in the office with a lot of people around us and a lot of people in the studio. And now it's literally just me and cameras and lights, and I have to turn them all on myself, and I have to operate a lot of things on my own. So that's new and interesting. And all the different news stations have been doing the same thing. So we've all gotten good at that. And as you know, the technology exists to do it because people your age use it. We just haven't done that in the past. So that's new and interesting to us. But the more important thing is what I do in the news business is not the important part. What is important is what we call news gathering. That's all the people who are out there, reporters and photographers, who get the news from people, who find out the stories, and they travel and they go to places and they go to people's homes and their places of work. That's harder to do, right, with social distancing, because people are staying in their homes. They don't really want to invite people in. They're not out as much. So that becomes a little bit challenging. And of course, if you're outside of your home, you have to take precautions that we're not used to taking, right? You've got to have the masks and you have gloves and you got to clean things and you can't touch everything that you want. So those are challenging times, but we are learning through all of this, like everybody else is, how to work more efficiently without the things that we're used to. And I think when you watch the news, you'll see that we're getting most of the way there. And I think there will be some changes that have come because of coronavirus that will be there even after it's gone, because we're learning better ways to do things.
What keeps you motivated as a journalist in covering the coronavirus pandemic?
I think the thing that keeps me motivated is that people really need this information, right? I think people need the news normally, but sometimes people just don't want to listen to the news. They've got other things, they've got other priorities. Well, now people need this information, and we are in a time where there's lots of information out there, right? We've never had so much information. When I was your age, it was just you had three news shows on TV, and you had the radio, and you had magazines, and you had newspapers. Now it's everything on your phone all the time. So people aren't sure what information to trust, or what information is really important, what's less important. So that's my job, right? In theory, people who watch me trust me, so I'll give them information that's important to them, and I get to prioritize it in a way because I've got news shows. I sort of give you a sense of what's most important, and then there's this, and then there's this that's interesting, a little bit less important, and there's this that's information you can use. So I think that this now becomes more of a responsibility than a job. It used to just be a job, right? I had to go in and do it every day. Now it feels like people rely on and they depend on the information they get from me. So I have to take that very seriously. And I think in this time when we're all in this struggle together, feels like I'm being a little bit useful to people. So that's what keeps me going.
The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the world in many ways. How do you decide which topics to discuss?
So look, we have to keep in our mind at all times that even though I'm a real person with a family who has particular concerns about this, what are all the various things that are going on that are important for people to understand? So when you think about coronavirus, what are the important things? The infection itself, the treatments for it, the testing for it, whether there's a vaccine that's being developed to protect us from it. And then there's all the changes in life that people are staying at home, as you've noticed, more than they used to, how that affects them, how they get their jobs done, how they get their groceries, and then how this affects everything else. This is the most unusual thing I've ever reported on in my life, because not only is this big thing out there that's got us worried, but it's changing the way we do everything. It's changing the way you go to school. It's changing the way college students go to university. It's changing the way we work. And so we constantly have to take all of this information and help people understand what's happening and what is going to happen, right? Those are the two things that most people are worried about, right? If you're worried about coronavirus, you're worried about what's going on with it today and how is this going to change my life? how will things be different for us? And I think for people like you, this must be really interesting, right? Because you wonder, your life is about school and your friends and your homework and your family life, and now everything's a little bit different. So we try and make sense of it for people. We try and draw a picture so that they don't have to do all the hard work and the research, because people are busy living their own lives and doing their own things and getting their education and doing their work from home. So we try and get all the best information. Think about it like a museum, right? You may see all the things on display, but in the museum basement, there's a whole lot of things that aren't on display. And every museum probably has a storage warehouse somewhere else with even more stuff that isn't on display. So that's what we're trying to do in the news. We're trying to be like your visit to the museum. Your visit to the news should be the best stuff, the most important stuff that can help you make decisions about your health, your safety, and your life going forward.
Okay, thank you. In a recent interview, you stated a journalist should bear witness and hold the power accountable. What did you mean by that? And can you give an example of how you did that?
Yeah. So bear witness simply means to say what you saw, say what's going on, tell people what's actually happening. That's what the term bear witness means. You are a witness to something, so you share that with people. So that's an important thing to tell people. That's part of our job. And then the other thing is to hold power to account, right? And what that means is that there are people in authority. There are powerful people. And that could be the president, that could be your governor, that could be your member of Congress, could be the boss of a company, could be the principal at your school, but people who have authority and can make decisions. And our job is to make sure that they're making the right decisions and ask them the right questions. So one good example of that is climate change, right?
Yeah.
What does bearing witness mean with climate change? It means telling people the evidence, the things that are happening, the changes in temperatures. If a hurricane is worse than it would have been before climate change, if forest fires are worse than they are before climate change. So that's bearing witness, showing them the pictures, going out there in hurricanes and in fires and showing people things and discussing it with them. The holding power to account is the people who are in charge of the policies that allow us to continue to make climate change worse. So we have to talk to politicians or companies if they're doing the wrong thing and ask them why they're doing these things. Whose decision was it? Why won't they change and do things in a better way? So that's one example of two parts of a story: bearing witness, telling people like you who are watching me what's happening, and then going to the people who have some authority over what's happening or are in charge of some of what's happening and asking them why it's being done. And that works at the highest level, like climate change, and it works at the most basic level about your home or your school, right? There's always authority in wherever you are, and the idea of challenging that a little bit is a good thing. Now, a lot of your parents will probably not be pleased that I'm telling you all to challenge authority because teachers and parents do have authority over kids. So I'm not really talking about that as much as I am about people who make policies outside of your house and your school.
Got it. Thanks. I learned a lot preparing and conducting my interview with Mr. Velshi. I hope you did too.